All right, here to discuss criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno and former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. And actually, I want to start with the Schabusiness case. And I'll start with you, Nima. An independent psychologist in the previous hearing came in and talked about the fact that she doesn't think that she'll understand the proceedings and can't participate in her defense. That's basically the definition of competency or not being competent. When you get these independent, diagnoses like this, and they have another one coming up, so we'll have to see what they say. I mean, this is exactly what you're looking for when you're talking about, hey, we can't proceed to trial with this woman. She doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, Michael, I agree with you, and obviously we saw this with Lori Vallow, but just because someone's temporarily incompetent doesn't mean they can't be restored to competency at some point. I mean, here's someone that clearly has an issue with her lawyer, independent experts who are coming to evaluate her and evaluate her competence. So, I wouldn't be surprised if she's ruled temporarily incompetent, but I think at some point, through medication or otherwise, she will be restored to competency and she should stand trial for the murder.
Yeah, David Bruno, that's the point I was going to make. She's clearly, at least according to the testimony of that independent psychologist, she's out there. We see some of her actions. You can talk about malingering. I don't know. Based on the testimony, I'm not sure this is a malingering situation. I mean, what if they can't get her back to a point where she can aid in her own defense, that she can understand the proceedings? I mean, where do you go from there?
She will remain in custody, and she will be in probably a treatment facility until they can get her back to understanding the process. I mean, the reason for this is that she has constitutional rights. She's going to have to make decisions with respect to her trial. She has to assist in her attorneys and with the defense. She has to ultimately make a decision when it comes to the defense case to testify or not testify. And the Constitution requires that she's of sound mind. So this competency evaluation that's happening is such a low threshold, too. I mean, do you understand what your lawyer's role is? Do you know what the judge does? These are the questions that have to be answered. And if the independent expert comes in and says that she's not competent, then she just can't start her trial until she's competent. And that can go on forever. That means that she'll stay in the custody in control of the state until she's able to establish competency.
And even though this is competency, and we know, Nima, that doesn't relate to the guilt phase of the trial, if and when that starts, certainly a lot of that same testimony is when he's coming in talking about that. Her crime was so bizarre that certainly we're going to hear a lot of this type of testimony in the trial as well.
Oh, there's no question, right? There's competency, which is what's the defendant's state of mind right now, and there's insanity, or even states that don't have the insanity defense, really the mens rea, that criminal intent at the time of the crime. So if you're going to argue insanity, if you're going to argue that you didn't have the intent to commit murder, really the question is, because of some mental disease or defect, did that prevent you from understanding your actions, whether they were right or wrong? Again, tough burden for a defendant to meet. Oftentimes, most states puts that burden on the defendant, but really, what other defense is there in a case like this, Michael? She's not going to argue it wasn't me.
No, she's not going to make that argument. And, with just some of that testimony, again, something doesn't add up, is what the psychologist said. She's bizarre. She's throwing chairs at her. So